Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. This is going to be a look at a brand new comic that just came out. It's called Loss, a pet story. This is written by Boldfish, and I want to make sure I get the writer's name right. The art is by Pinheart. Well, I didn't know why I would expect to screw that up. Now watch me find out it's pronounced Pinheart, because me screwing up names is apparently a thing. I'm not bitter about that at all. Yeah. Now, this series is dedicated to both Boldfish and Pinheart's pets, and you can kind of guess where this is going. If you've ever seen that one little comic about the dog being taken away by the Grim Reaper and asking if he's a good boy, yes, it's that. This is basically the comic explanation of that, but for cats. I know, apparently people actually like having cats. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm just bitter because every time I have them, they just kind of glare at me. It's like, you can feed me, but then I will scratch your eyes out. I'm not in physical pain or anything. Yeah. So, now, I don't want to completely spoil this for anyone. That said, warning, probably going to spoil this, so watch at your own risk. That said, I like this entire comic. It's a very short one. It's only 3 parts. Each part is tiny. It's on the webtoons.com website. And generally, it's just good. First, you jump in, and episode 1 is I Am Brute. You go in, and you see the first character, Brute. Now, the art style itself is really... It has a mix of high detail comic paint. It looks more detailed than a comic, but less than a manga. It's almost like someone did a very, very good crayon drawing. And it actually adds a nice aspect of style to it because it's consistent, but at no point is it hard to decipher what's going on. In fact, I think the art is one of the best advantages for this. It conveys so much emotion in just the faces of the individual animals, of Brute, the main character, the cat, the first cat. And that's what happens. He's the first cat. The entire first arc is Brute getting his name, finding out that his family love him. It's cute, it's adorable. He's a little kitten being adopted, and then he dies. There's a lot of time skip. There's a lot of different events that you miss, and by the time you just get a few cute moments with him, he's dead. And it's not so much that he's just dead, it's that during this entire time, you get to know that he has dreams. He wants to be a big, fierce lion, because the animals talk in this one. And then you get to just watch him die. It's like, I didn't get to be a lion. I didn't get my dream. I don't want to leave them behind. It's like, oh God, really, Boldfish? You're just writing these lines to make us feel horrible. Yes, you are. And it's not so much that this is incredibly nuanced. It's a straightforward kick to the groin. But it's also accurate because as someone who's had pets die on them a lot, not because I took care of them, I just had a ton of pets growing up. 3 dog minimum. 3 hyper dog minimum. I'm allergic to dogs. Yeah. But it's adorable. But you get to watch him die and just argue and try and rationalize, and it's not easy to watch and read this because there's good detail on the faces. It looks anguished, and that's hard. And yeah, the entire first chapter does end with him just saying his name and then saying goodbye. It's like, oh my God, are you serious? The second chapter is more or less the same. Its title is Our Angel Thor. And yes, if you haven't picked it up, you will really soon into this. They are just references to the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy and all of the Marvel universes. I actually kind of find that funny because the first lines in there are just a reference to Guardians of the Galaxy, and I might have laughed at that. It's stupid, I shouldn't have, but I did. Yeah. Then you jump into Thor, and it's the exact same formula. You get to meet him, you get to see some cute moments, and then you get to watch him die horribly, complaining that he doesn't want to leave his family. This is where things change, though. After a honestly amazing scene of just depicting what it's like for the animal to die from their perspective. Okay, let me rephrase that. An artistic representation of what it must feel like. And honestly, it's one of the coolest things I have seen in art generally. It just looks quite amazing. You get to see the other side, and it doesn't make it easier. Where Brute, you basically ended with him ending. This one, no, you get to see afterlife in this, and it's kind of brutal, because you get to see the realization on his part that it's too late, it's already over, and it's not happy. It is gut-wrenching, because where the first one was just a shock, this one, you know it's coming, but then there's more. It's not easy. And then, once he comes to the realization there's no more, that it's over, he has nothing else, and it's done, then you get to the third part and the finale of the entire series. Now, I don't want to spoil this, but I honestly believe the first two parts, setting up the cats to be in the afterlife, that is just the prologue. Because part 3, it might not be the longest, but its title is Aftermath. And this is where I think the story actually starts, begins, and considering it's the final part, it ends. The first two parts, learning about Thor, the second cat, learning about Brute, the first cat, and just how they didn't want to leave, how they were living their lives until horrible things happened, and then just having to confront the fact that it's over, and that's not easy, but that's setting up what happens to them next. And it's cool, and it's interesting, because it's not a perspective you see a lot of time. This is the cats in the afterlife, and they meet, and they interact, because they have the same bond with the same people in real life, and I like how they portray the afterlife. It's not even something they really mention. They just show you different vistas, because it's such an interesting location. It's like, wow, this is fascinating. I liked it. I really liked it. It's short, it's punchy, it's to the point. That said, it does have some issues. Especially in the first chapter, there's a problem with the dialogue. The dialogue itself is fine. I personally would prefer speech boxes or thought bubbles opposed to speech boxes, because they're just talking to themselves rather than someone else to interact with. But that's just because I was raised on Garfield as a comic about talking animals, so I'm very biased. I'm not really putting much stock in that. It's just my bias right there. The problem is more of a formatting issue. The dialogue doesn't quite fit in the boxes, and because of the style of almost a highly detailed crayon, while it works fine for the art, it makes the words harder to read. I first looked at this on my phone, and while I have a reasonably big screen, it doesn't make it easy to read. In fact, it makes it quite difficult. You have to zoom in a bit, and it takes a little bit away from the immersion when you have to, like, oh, I can't see the next part. What is it? Is that a word? Oh no, it's a thought bubble. Oh no, yeah, no, it says something. I missed it. Yeah, it's a bit annoying. Now, it gets better because as it goes, you get more used to the style, so it becomes a little more legible. But again, I would have preferred if the words were just a little bit bigger, a little more defined, because the nature of the font they chose, they kind of blur together just a bit when they're on a smaller size. Now, reading on a computer makes it easier because, huge screen by comparison to a phone. That said, this is a perfect format for something to just read quickly on a phone, so I think it would be better if they just improve the size of the font, or just alter the font to not quite fit the style nearly as well. It would be a little bit mismatched, but the ease of access would probably make up for it. That's my personal take. Now, if there is one criticism I have to make that's not just a format-related issue, it's that the first two parts, they're just a prologue. They could have been highly shortened and get the exact same punch, because it's not their death that's the story. And it hurts because, how many people have had the sympathetic pain of watching an animal they love die? It's something a lot of people will sympathize with, so it has a lot of power and a lot of weight immediately. but they don't really need to show it because you don't really focus on the good times to build up the character. You just get to see them being cute and they're dead. It's effective because there's a lot of tied up emotion in pet owners. So even though it's a very short run, those 2 intro chapters work. But without that tied up emotion, if someone was reading this without ever having an animal, without having that experienced emotion of pain, it wouldn't work as much. But I think that's fine because, 1, it's really common to have an understanding of what it's like to lose a pet, and 2, I don't think this is a story meant for people who haven't had pets. This is literally just catharsis for the pet owners who have had that loss. That's the target audience, so I think at least in that case, that's acceptable. What I think would improve it is cutting down the intro chapters, maybe even removing a lot of the dialogue and just showing it, because the art is super expressive. And the dialogue doesn't really work because the parties aren't talking to each other. Even though everyone's talking in speech bubbles, the cats are talking to themselves. They don't talk to the people. The people are talking to themselves. And while they might talk at the cat, because people baby talk animals, it's a thing. I'm not saying I've done it, but I cannot deny it. Yeah. It isn't nearly as important. But in the 3rd episode, in Aftermath, where the actual story kicks off, that's important because it is dialogue. There is a conversation between Thor and Brute. And I'm trying not to spoil this, but that's some of the best part, because not only is the art evocative and emotional, which throughout has been completely above par. I think the art is perfectly on point because even though it looks simplistic and silly and childish as the crayon format, it is very emotive. The artist, Pinhart, did a great job at making you feel alongside the characters. He did awesome. Or she, I don't know. That's perfect. But the writing only catches off on the 3rd one because they finally get to interact. So if you had just shortened the first 2 bits and jumped right into the 3rd one, it might be a much shorter comic, but I think it would be a lot punchier because you get to the parts that are important. Now, how you would do that effectively? You still need a few parts here, a few parts there, but a lot of it is very simple. You could just do flashbacks to intersperse it throughout. You could do just random bits, just cut it down, just show the death and then show the second cat dying immediately. Now they do establish it's the same family pretty well by having pictures left up of the previous cat. But overall, I think the best part about this is that it makes you look at the animals. You get to see what they see, you get to feel what they feel, and it's very cathartic by the end, where you get to watch what they do afterwards. The Aftermath is a very appropriate title for the 3rd chapter because it is just that. It's the aftermath of having lived both of their lives and then died. And I think that part is handled perfectly. It's exactly what it needs to be. There actually doesn't need to be much more to the story because they concluded exactly what they needed. But getting to that, I think they stretched it a little longer. On the alternative side, if they had fleshed out a lot more and made the cats much more detailed and given you much more story about them, well, that might have worked on that end to build them up more. It would have also taken away from the actual important part of the story, which was what comes after death for these animals. And that is honestly the best part. So I think even then, even if you expanded more on it to build them more, it wouldn't really work because it doesn't fit with what this story is attempting to accomplish. And I think overall, even though it's not perfect, it does what it needs to do. It does it perfectly well. It hits its target audience, and it functions perfectly as a way to convey emotions. It is catharsis, and I like it for that because it did it well. If you want to read this on your own, I would highly recommend it. Don't do it if you're recently losing a pet. It might hurt a bit, but that's up to you. There's a link below to the original, original comic. Hit it up. And also, if you want, hit up Boldfish's channel too. I'll try and put a drop-down link for there as well. Yeah, drop-down link. Fancy words, yeah. It's definitely worth checking out. And again, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next one. And if you want me to check out any other comics, let me know. I'm always looking for new things to look at. Mostly because I gotta do something at break on work. At work on break. I can English. No, I can't. See you guys in the next one. Adios.